Running away like a mouse?
I haven't got your winnings.
I know. I had my assistant check your assets.
Then what do you want?
I want you to stop bending the bet your way.
Okay. I'll leave him alone. I only 'cause it's you, cuz.
But where they see sickness, I see health. Where they see insanity, I see wisdom.
You're right. I mean, who wants this big society? You keep your nose clean and we'll sort you out with a life that's not worth living. And it comes from the top down, you know. This whole country is run by a bunch of comedians who tell us how to live because that's how we should be.
That photo. Who were you with?
An old school friend. We had a great time together.
Did you do this kind of thing?
All the time.
Hi Gary, as you know, I'm Steve, and is Terry with us on his YouTube channel today? And,
Hi Gary.
Hiya.
Welcome along, and you contacted us about having a chat.
Yeah,
here we are. So
yeah, cool. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. It's been I've just been looking at your memoirs and a lot of your stuff, and it's really interesting. Terry, you were going to say something, weren't you, to start it off with?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about, you're quite open about a troubled background. And I'm thinking, it sounds like a cliche, but I've spoken to so many writers, and I'm just thinking, one screenwriter in particular I spoke to, he said when he was in his classes being taught screenwriting, the lecturer said, right, anyone here had a happy life? Put your hand up. And a couple of people put the hand up. He said, right, you lot leave now. And he wants people with troubled backgrounds because they've got the conflict that they can use to drive that
exactly,
power in fiction, the authenticity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of which, and just before we go on to talking about your memoirs and other bits and pieces, I was interested to find out what the piece was about. You know, you got stopped and searched, the police stop and search, which caused you obviously some trouble.
And still,
what happened there? I mean, you said it was like quite tipped you into like a paranoid psychosis, and you had a corrosive suspicion of the police. So can you just enlighten us a bit more on that?
Maybe more compared to others, I don't know. So it was interesting. It was a stop and search. I was on work experience. It's going back to 1996. So it's in Good Street in London. I was on work experience. I was working for a video editing company and going from company to company, just kind of handing stuff in. And for no reason whatsoever, I was stopped and searched in the street in the middle of the day. I didn't, I think back now it's like, because they were in a car, like I didn't even notice the police car pull up. So I must have been in the world of my own. So in theory, like that's the only reason they stopped me, because I was like, I just, kind of minding my own business and looking around at places. But yeah, looking back, like I don't remember the police car being there or anything. And I was stopped and searched, and I wasn't arrested, and it wasn't violent or anything. And in some ways, they didn't do anything wrong, apart from I then got an apology later on. It was like they called it an informal resolution, informal apology from the chief inspector. And but it kind of triggered an episode of psychosis that I never experienced before. And it was really kind of, like a long time after, actually in writing the book, I only learned that's what it was, because people were kind of reading graphs and going, you have to like have a name for it. What is it you're describing this? But I didn't quite know what to call it. And somebody said, a psychotherapist's friend said, it sounds like it was an episode of psychosis. But the most important thing is the word episode, because I never experienced it before, and it was a one-off thing. But it was basically all of I would have like visions about being stopped and searched and being beaten by the police and being beaten up by the police, but my emotions, and especially my anger, would react as if it was really happening. So
wow.
lots of people have asked, like, did I know it was in my head? But it's like, yes, but it was kind of irrelevant because my emotions would take over like within a split second. And that, obviously, you know, I never had that experience before, so I didn't even know how to describe it when it was going on. So that lasted for like 3 or 4 months, and I was involved in a taxi driver incident, which then I took myself down to the boxing club, and that kind of helped a bit because I got to use some energy. But yeah, it was, I ended up taking an overdose 3 or 4 months into it, because I went to the doctors and of course couldn't really describe what was happening. And then he gave me sleeping tablets. So I was like, okay, fine. And then, yeah, but these delusions kind of kept on happening. And so my emotions would react to it. And I was getting more and more exhausted, like emotionally exhausted, to the point where I couldn't cope. And then, yeah, I ended up taking sleeping tablets over 2 nights. And that was kind of, that was the worsening of my mental health. That's why I've kind of been open about it. Writing has made it easier for me to be open. As soon as you write something down, even if it's true, it's kind of a character, and people talk about the writing rather than like my story, which even though it is. So yeah, so it's been interesting. And then actually I saw a load of artworks about mental health, and then I was like, I could just start using this in art and in my work and what I do. And I've kind of pretty much done that since then, really. So
Gary, does this episode, do you think this link back to your troubled childhood? I know you're quite open about it, you know, looking at your website. And it sounds like an awful childhood that you went through.
Yeah, it kind of was. Yeah, I didn't want to. Yeah, I'm going to be 50 this year.
Young man.
So yeah, but I remember kind of being in high school and thinking, you know, I can't wait to be 50 because it would mean I'd survived like that long. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of really interesting. So yeah, I was on a friend's web stream, and that was live. That was interesting doing this live. But he had read some of the book, and he said, "Who was your protector?" Because there doesn't seem to be anyone from my childhood who did kind of look after me. And that was the first time that someone has asked me that so directly. And it's like, yeah, there wasn't really anyone to kind of look after me, but also I was very quiet. So, because I was born with a flat nose and cleft palate, which is a hole in the roof of my mouth. So yeah, I had everyone, I in my head, it feels like everyone and their mate, or the world and their mate, kind of making fun of me. And that may be a slight exaggeration. But yeah, it was a lot to kind of go through, and I just kind of stayed quiet. But also I got to make up kind of stories in my head. And so that kind of helped me to not be there. It also helped that I bunked off high school a lot, so I literally wasn't there. So that was kind of, but yeah, it's kind of, it's much easier now looking back on it than obviously it was at the time. Obviously at the time, I mean, yeah, I remember, you know, I was walking around high school thinking I'm not gonna live till 30. And I've obviously done that. So yeah, it was kind of really kind of traumatic, but now, and again, you know, putting it all in writing, that's been one of the things that friends who and not just friends, other people I thought would have, I would not relate to, have read the book and said actually they can relate to, you know, quite a bit of it, which has been really interesting. And that's kind of been the best part of writing it in a way. It's the feedback from other people, and say things like your questions, and they're all really, really interested in it. So yeah, now I have those years, I'm further away from it now, obviously, than I ever have been. And the 5 years of therapy kind of helped, I guess. And then, yeah, talking about it and then writing about it has definitely helped. So yeah, so it does feel like I've come a long way. And now, yeah, it's kind of, it is one of my favorite things to talk about, because like I'm one of my favorite things to talk about, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting, but it's also like I don't think there's anyone that hasn't experienced kind of some form of, if not bullying, then some kind of hardship, you know, as a teenager. And it's a universal story in a way to a lot of people. So just to kind of, for me to find that out has been really, really good.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have had the book and all these stories. So.
Yeah, I got as far as chapter 9, which wasn't as far as I wanted, but yeah. And once I picked it up, I couldn't put it down because I was really interested to see how it went.
Thanks.
So I got as far as your early school years and into high school, and you know your traumas with was it Roy? He was your stepdad, your dad and your mum's relationship, and you going to school, and the way you dealt with it. From what I can see, was being quiet. You just didn't speak, did you? And you found that was best because if you spoke, obviously it caused you problems, and you end up with more people bullying you because of the way you spoke and the way you looked. So it must have been so tough. But yeah, I'll have to read more of it when I can. But yeah,
if you can, I think that's the kind of, if you're bullying, then you want to become invisible. And I think for me that was the not talking to people, then they won't notice. But I did go through kind of high school, to the point there's you'll find later on, I had my second skin graft on my nose after I left high school, and that kind of fixed my nose. And then I remember leaving the hospital, and these two teenagers kind of walked past me, and I was like really surprised that they didn't make fun of me. I was like, oh, okay. And they might have been like nice guys and not made fun of anyone, but I just remember kind of being really conscious of that. And then it kind of, there's a bit where I talk about it. It just kind of stopped all that attention. However, it was kind of attention. And that kind of almost stopped overnight just because I'd had this sort of second operation on my nose.
Yeah, because you had one side of your nose done, and then you were quite anxious, weren't you? Because you never had the other side done at the same time. You had to wait then. Now, that must have been really traumatic in its own. You know, at least you were getting somewhere, but it must have been even worse in some respects because you don't have a completely odd-shaped nose.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, my mum wanted me to go through high school without any interruptions. And of course, I never really told her anything. So I went home and I was quiet as well. So I never really spoke about the bullying or, the people making fun of me until it kind of got unbearable in sort of later teenage years. And so, so it was, I kind of understand that in some ways, but in some ways, it would have been much easier if I could just have them both the sides done at the same time, and possibly wouldn't have had anyone making fun of me. But I was always short as well for my age. That's still relatively short, but that's what I always had, short for my age. And so that's I may have still had bullying, but probably not as much. When I was in it, I was just like, I don't know, I wanted to get high school over with and then go home and sort of live in this world of my own.
Just going back a bit, tell us how your career started off as a writer, director. Was this way back? You did a degree course, was it in digital media, was it?
Yeah, so I did a degree in digital imaging. So it was the closest thing to filmmaking. I was thinking about this earlier, actually. I remember going to the London Film School, and it was like in the evening. It was while I was on work experience, and it was like this really old building, and they had like really old wooden chairs there and kind of desks. And I went in, and there was like nobody around, and I was like, "Is this really the right place?" And they had like a screening room, I think. And I was like, this can't be the right place because there's no one around. So I left, and then I wrote to them. And it was like £30,000 even back then to get a film school. And it's just like, I don't think I'd ever be able to afford that.
Was the grants available?
I don't know. So there may have been at the time, but I think I just saw that and I didn't even bother kind of investigating it. Do you know what I mean? So I did a couple of courses in media studies, and media studies is like really quite general. Then I actually found my local college, actually, Nescott, they did a degree in digital imaging, and that was really good. And I did like 2-year part-time, and then I did 2-year part-time for the degree. So it was like an HND and then the degree on top of that. And so, yeah, and so that was really good. And I got to talk about the Titanic, the film, James Cameron's movie, because he used digital technology. So I got to shoehorn that in for my dissertation. I think we had a final project and then a dissertation. And my dissertation was on the history and impact of digital television, because that was just starting up. And I remember talking, I called someone from the adult channel, and the only thing we talked about was video formats. And it's like, and that was kind of, really interesting, but they were like really on it, and they knew kind of everything that was going to happen, and like everything would be digital. And I think one of my conclusions was that everyone would pay more than just the license fee for some form of TV. Now, like we all have Netflix or Sky or whatever. But yeah, then I really wanted to make films. So I didn't really do anything with the degree, but I did get work experience for TV. So I worked for like the Children's Channel, and I worked for like an internet magazine. And then, I kind of went down the Arts Council route because they kind of funded me basically. And I got really lucky with my first, so I guess this was 10 years after. So I graduated in 2001. And then I got my first, I'm dating myself here, but then I got my first Arts Council grant in about 2005. So I went down the arts route because I missed all of this time working. So I was going in and out of hospital. So I was like having operations. I was like, nobody will give me a job because I've had all this time off. So I kind of felt like I had to make my own path. And my first Arts Council application, it was with another artist, actually called Abby Norris. And we kind of did a joint application, and that was successful. And so I kind of directed my first, that was my third film. That was my second film by that point. So so I kind of went down that route. So I did running for like a couple of weeks, or a few weeks. So being a runner is like the first job in TV. And it's like the general dog's body, that kind of thing. And so I kind of went down the funding route, and I just became really good at getting funding, especially from the Arts Council. And that's kind of how I started. But it was always with a thing of, I didn't feel like anyone would take me seriously if I wanted like a proper job, because I'd missed so much of this time being in and out of hospital. So there's this other reason, but actually turned out to be really good. And Arts Council have been really amazing in terms of funding me. And they're funding me this year for another film. So I went down the funding route in order to kind of create my own work. And that's kind of really how I got into directing.
Brilliant. Just before we go on, are you still based in London, or you noticed you mentioned Surrey? So are you based in Surrey?
Yeah. So my company is based in London. I live in Epsom in Surrey. So it's not too far. I just come back from the BFI actually today. So just seen Metropolis on the big screen, which is really good. And I've never seen it before, and it had a live piano accompaniment. So that was really good. Yeah. So,
the original Metropolis, the 1920s, was it?
Yeah, 1926, 27. Yeah, I read it. I think it was 13 months to make it or something. So it's really good. It's one of those things. I have it on DVD and never seen it. And then a friend went with like 3 other friends. Just seen it. And it's really great. And it's amazing to see it on the big screen.
Wasn't that word you couldn't spell, Metropolis, by any chance? What was that word in your memoirs? You mentioned it. You had trouble.
Geronimo.
Sorry, it was Geronimo.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, but no, Metropolis.
Sorry,
I'm all right. Yeah, Metropolis is now in my spell checker, so it's like in my predictive words.
Yeah, I knew there was a spell in there, and I thought it was similar to Metropolis. Yeah, but it was Geronimo. Geronimo. Yeah, I didn't say it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, interrupted you there.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Gary, you mentioned your film company. Is this Film on Film Entertainment, the same as your YouTube channel? Yeah, I've been watching quite a few of your films today on the YouTube channel. I'll put a link up on here on.
That's great. Yeah. Oh God.
Sorry, I was going to say one of them was set in Liverpool. Have you visited us a couple of times? That was during the Capital Culture Year.
Yeah, exactly. So they had Disability Arts Online, and I got paid to go to Liverpool, which was amazing. And I made an art film. Was it Dada South? It was the Liverpool. It's one of the disability arts festivals, and there was a load of money on that time. It was kind of not long before the Olympics, so there was quite a bit of cultural money, and it was great. Yeah, and I got to make an artist film about all the other artists, and my work wasn't in there, but I still found a way of getting in there by making this film and being commissioned to make a film with Disability Arts Online, all about the festival. And so, yeah, so I got to meet all these amazing artists. And that was a couple of years after my first Arts Council grant as well. So, yeah, it was like a real kind of wide opening for me to see all this amazing work by all the disabled artists that were on show, and really interesting. And yeah, I got to meet them and interview them, and yeah, visit Liverpool. And yeah, definitely, it was amazing.
Excellent. You make a couple of bold statements on your, I think it's on your Twitter account.
Oh God, okay.
One of them is, I want to be the new British rom-com guy.
Yeah.
How are you going to achieve that? And you do also go on to say, my job is to try and fulfill my potential. So your job is, I get that bit. But so how are you going to do this first bit then?
I think, swept up in, there's a really great guy called Billy Murnett, and he wrote Writing the Romantic Comedy. So his thing is all about the romantic comedy. And in the back of it, there's like the 125, not like the in quotes, the best 125 romantic comedies. So they're not really the best, but they're like based on box office and based on the time that they came out and based on reviews and everything. And I've been reading that, and it's been really great. And I love romantic comedy. It's my genre, my favorite genre. 3 or 4 feature scripts I've got on romantic comedy ideas. So I do really like it, and stories kind of come naturally to me, but especially like romantic comedies. And I was watching even Metropolis because I hadn't seen it before. So I saw Metropolis today at the BFI, and there's a scene in the garden where he meets this girl, and I was like, whoa, it's a romantic comedy now. So there was all of these different genres in this one film that was made like way back in like 1926, but I was linking it. I was like, oh, that's like Beauty and the Beast, because at the end they end up on the roof. And I was like, oh, that's like Star Wars, because they end up on the steps in front of the building. And I just saw all of these influences, but especially romantic comedy in terms of my writing. I love that. And yeah, I guess it's harder in this country, I think, because especially like the BFI funding, and there've been some great British comedies, but I think romantic comedies, and especially like the Hollywood that's kind of what I really want to kind of get into. But actually, if I'm the British rom-com guy to go to, that'll be a really good start. And then then Hollywood hopefully will be next. But yeah, it's definitely my favorite genre to write in. And I'm just I'm a real romantic at heart, as much as I like to think I've buried all my feelings from my childhood. I kind of feel like they have to have an outlet, and that is kind of writing about people that get together and get married at the end.
Gary, on your website, excellent website, by the way.
Thank you.
You talk about you going over to LA to pitch films over to Hollywood. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was really cool. So I'm actually hoping to go back again this year. So that was it. I did the Pitch Fest. So every year they have something called a Pitch Fest, and a lot of people do it. And it's kind of there's a few of them, but this was like one of the kind of proper ones. So I saw this and I thought, oh, I could actually afford to go there. And I did like this whole pitch weekend. It was 3 or 4 days, and I got to meet all of these companies. And that's the kind of scary thing, that when I put on my Twitter, this is what I don't think about when I want to be the British rom-com guy. Because then I remember about going to LA, and I met somebody from DreamWorks, and what I didn't kind of realize at the time, they all work for these companies, but they're all probably like assistants, and kind of, they're not going to be like the chief executive isn't going to sit there and listen to like 12 pictures a day. I didn't really know that when I went there, but it was great. But yeah, I pitched my first wedding comedy script, and I got some really good feedback. But I remember this lady from DreamWorks, and I don't remember her name, but she was like really onto it. So you just say like one sentence about your idea, and they immediately see the whole story, and they can immediately tell you what's wrong with it, and they immediately have all of these questions, and they want to ask you just on your like one line, and like, how does that make sense? Because they live and breathe, you know, these movies, especially the Hollywood movies, you know, all the time. And so that was really amazing to kind of see all these companies. And I actually remember talking about Liverpool. There was this one, again, because it was 2008, I'm not going to remember names, but there was this one lady from Liverpool who had gone there and got her green card and was working for a company out there. And she was like, and it was one of the bits of advice that I saw was like, go to the smaller companies, because everybody's going to want to pitch to Warner Brothers and DreamWorks and all of that, but go to the smaller companies because they will have money, but they also might actually give you more time. And I did. So this lady didn't have anyone else after her. So I basically got 2 sessions of this woman that came from Liverpool and had got her green card and was working out there for this production company. And it was really great. And I got some really great advice, some really great story advice. And I think what I went there without having a script ready is the only thing that I would say to anyone else who wants to do that. Kind of make sure you have a script ready, and then you can pitch it, and you can, if anyone does ask for it, you can kind of send it straight away. But I also read, I think I read before I went out there, it's like, it's kind of unlikely at those things that you will get asked for the script. But I have done other things and I've had script requests, which has been obviously really good. So that was amazing. And then I did the whole tourist thing like for a week after. So I went to Universal Studios and all of that. And I think that's it. It was after I had gone there previously when Jurassic Park was out. So I went with my brother years before. And I had these big billboards with any of the, especially on Universal Studios lot, they have all these billboards and they're all taken up with whatever the big blockbuster is that year. So there's a massive poster with Jurassic Park. And I don't remember what it was last time I went, but it was really great to be there. And I did see a film called Rocket Boy because I went for the tour of the Grauman's Chinese Theatre and actually saw a film in there, which was really great because it's amazing cinema that have been featured in major films, you know, and I actually sat there and saw a film there. And you do like a tour and there's so many people doing tours. So I got like almost a one-on-one tour with this other person that kind of walked me around. And they go like, because they had the premiere of one of the Marilyn Monroe films, as Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, might have been.
Yeah.
And so if you sit on one of the seats, you would have sat on the seat that possibly Marilyn Monroe would have sat on, or Lauren Bacall would have sat on, and they kept them, you know, just as it was kind of back then. So it was a really great experience, yeah.
Brilliant. Just moving back to this country, you touch about the Paralympics in 2012. I was actually in London for the Paralympics myself, but I noticed you touched on not just that, but you talked about where you made some of your films in the Oscar-winning film The King's Speech, where that was made. I take it then, because you mentioned that film, you've got a particular love of that one.
Yeah, I do like it. I mean, it's about the king who didn't have a voice. I mean, how,
exactly.
you know what I mean? So like how
ironic,
you know, to be able to put that, you know, in my book. Yeah. So when I got to film it, it's called Lancaster House. And it was really, really cheap at the time. And yeah, me and my arts council funded film called The Dog and the Palace, and it was a split screen film. And again, you know, I have dreams of ideas, and the arts council going around to companies asking like, what are you going to do for the Olympics? And I was like, I don't really have any ideas, but I'm going to work for all the companies that make things happen. And then that night I had an entire dream that was The Dog and the Palace film, and I dreamt it in split screen, and it was all there, and it was the story. And I woke up thinking I have to make that film now. And yeah, so about a few months later I was in Lancaster House filming, and Amanda Bellamy, who was in You Rang My Lord, and she played the Queen in my little film. And we had the Paralympians from the sitting volleyball team. They all came to be part of the film. And yeah, it was really good and really fun. And and Karen Gilchrist, who was the producer, amazing producer, and put it all together. And yeah, it was really a great time. And also Rhys Don, who was 9 years old at the time, he plays the little boy. And I've seen him on Instagram now. He's just graduated drama school. and he's become this amazing human being because I see his, you know, Instagram posts and stuff. And so I think he's going to go on to do really great things.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was the first time with a child actor and all of it. Yeah, so that was really good. And yeah, in the same location as the King's Speech was a few months before, and I got to go around all of it. And we couldn't use all of the rooms, but I think there was one room that definitely was in the film. And then the big staircase, and a lot of it's kind of almost like a stand-in for Buckingham Palace. So I know they filmed The Crown there since then. And yeah, so we went in the room where the balcony is, but we didn't film in that room. But yeah, it was great to go around there and see. And you're just in this luxury for like 2 days, and then you have to go home and kind of have this film to edit and put together. So yeah, that's pretty much what filmmaking is.
Awesome.
Yeah. Gary, you got a film based on your experience being a carer for your mum with Alzheimer's. That's going to be shown at the Fabrica Gallery in March.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting actually. Yeah, it's kind of again, it's Arts Council funded. I've been filming kind of because I'm a filmmaker, and I used to say because I'm insane. I have all these ideas and everything. And now I just say it's because I'm me. But I really want to capture things. So I've been capturing stuff on my phone with my mum, and also kind of like a record. So my mum went into a care home in October, actually. So I kind of just had this period of being a carer for like 4 or 5 years. And now it's kind of things have changed again. But yeah, so I got funding in July to make this film. And it was looking at my own experiences of being a carer for my mum with Alzheimer's. And so putting all of this footage together, and actually what happened was, I won't say the editing software, but it kept crashing on my laptop.
It was an OpenShot, was it? OpenShot?
Yeah, and so I ended up...
That's what I use.
Yeah. Huh?
I use it myself.
What was that?
OpenShot. OpenShot.
Okay, it's not that one.
Okay.
Right.
No, so it kept on crashing on my laptop, and I had a project manager. So this is the first time that I worked with a project manager. He's been really great, David Parker. He's been kind of making me do the work, basically. But because my laptop crashed, I had to hand over all the editing to him. And it's been like a happy kind of coincidence in a way, because he's watched all the footage and he's been able to put it together without me watching myself, and you know what I mean? So I haven't really had that. So I've had this outside perspective on it, which has been really good. And so he's been sending me kind of almost complete stages of the film. And it is kind of really interesting. And I think we're going to film this coming Friday, which is me talking about my experiences to camera. And there's a few ways that we could do it. And then it's going to be shown at Fabrica Gallery. So they've been really great. And they showed my film sectioned in 2016. So that was in the same scheme. So they have a scheme called Making Space, and any artist can apply to have their work shown. So it's going to be shown like for 1 day on March the 10th at Fabrica Gallery in Brighton. They're going to do an open day. And the idea is to show the work in progress. So I get to ask the audience for any feedback. And obviously in the audience, we're going to try and get curators and gallery people and other artists in. And that'd be a really good opportunity to get feedback on what they think. And the danger is that it could be like the most depressing film you've ever seen, ever. But actually having someone to edit it and having someone looking through the footage, just like he's found, all the funny stuff that my mum would say when I was filming and stuff like that. So it's not at all how I thought it might be. And actually, I think even though I'm saying it and I'm not really editing it, but I think it'll be like a really nice film. And then my job then is to kind of, with the gallery as well, it's like how to present it, because I'm always interested in like film installation, and because it's Arts Council funded. So Arts Council don't fund film, but they do fund artist film and video. So like my first funding application was looking at what that actually meant. And so I think in the gallery, in March, it will be 2 screens with like one soundtrack running between them. And I'm thinking hopefully it'll be like, I'm thinking about how you can guide the audience's experience while you're watching the film, so it doesn't get too morose or whatever. So, because we've interviewed a scientist from UCL, And that's the other thing as well about being an artist, because I literally wrote to, you know, her name's Liz at UCL, just say, hey, I'm making a film. Do you want to be involved? Can I interview you? And she just said yes. And so in making the film, I got to then talk about my mum, my own experiences and ask all these questions. And so if ever it gets emotional in the film, then we'll cut to the scientist and, you know, have her response. And I've also spoken to another friend, Ming Ho, and she had a very similar experience with her mum. And so it's got her perspective as well. So yeah, and so that's been really good. And it's been, again, it's hopefully, well, it has kind of been cathartic because, and it's interesting, the more people we involve, almost everyone have said, yes, they've also had personal experience of this. So that's been really interesting as well. And so, yeah, I can't wait for people to see the film, even if it is a work in progress, and see what people think of it.
I suppose, as sad as it is, I mean, you're saying you put your mum, or you had to put your mum in a home last October.
Yeah.
It's probably give you a lot more time to do what you want to do with filmmaking.
Exactly, yeah, and it's kind of, it's almost like I'm just getting used to it now. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, and something that Ming said, my friend, she was like, you become invisible because your life is then a carer for your mum, so you can't go out and do things. And actually, I'm in the film, I'm reading, I found my diary writings from just before my mum was diagnosed and then afterwards. And I say things like, which I don't really remember, but I say things like, it's been like this for 3 years. And I don't really remember that 3 years because in my head, I've been looking after her for like 4 or 5 years. But actually I go back and then I'm like, I must have been looking after her really for longer period and just kind of, you know, experimenting with, can I leave her on her own? And then we did get carers in. And then, yeah, and it's actually been the way that it happened. I got another blog on Disability Arts Online. I don't know if you've seen that. That's quite traumatic. But again, I was writing it and I uploaded it to Disability Arts Online. And I didn't realize how bad it was. And then I got the newsletter and they said, Gary talks about his harrowing experiences. And I was like, was it harrowing? I suppose it was, because you were in it at the time. So you don't really think about that. And then you sit back and like, yeah, I've been through all that and I've kind of out the other side of it now. And yeah, I said, had a bit of an away day the other day to kind of plan the next 3 years of my life. But I did, like say, I've got a bit of a blank canvas now for what I do, and that more time. I can still see my mum and I know she's been looked after. And I can kind of, get on with doing what I love, knowing that she is, you know, being looked after. And also because it did kind of get to the point where I couldn't cope with looking after her. So in a way, it could have happened a lot more seriously than it did. But yeah, I'm glad that it happened when it did.
You said you got more time on your hands now. Maybe if I can sort of end on this question, maybe. What's your current work in progress? What have you got lined up? You've got an excellent back catalogue of 16 short films, and you've got the film reel now, which is on your pinned tweet on Twitter.
Yeah.
What are you working on now, Gary?
Yeah. So hopefully I'm working on a couple of feature scripts, one of which I hope will be my first feature as a writer-director. That's the dream. Obviously, they're going to be a romantic comedy. Either one of them can be. So I've got. I actually did. It's a kind of very different. It's quite a different script. I did a play because I've done Wandsworth Fringe for the past 4 years, obviously without COVID. And that's going to be in June. So I'm writing a play for that at the moment. That's hopefully towards the end of June. That might be online. Not sure yet. But then hopefully. Within the next couple of years, the first feature as writer-director will be really amazing. And whether it's independent or whether it's studio backing, I have no idea. But that's why I kind of started to write things that are very personal, because I think that's what people can relate to. And but also trying to write something which is really easy to make, kind of where I live. So I'll be making something definitely, but hopefully, it'll be a first feature will be a wedding comedy.
Can I just ask very quickly? Sorry, Terry, I know but can I just ask quickly about your memoirs? I mean, it's still draft form; it's not finished. When are you? How are you planning to go about that? Are you going to call it a day at some point, or and then
so people tell me how to do that. Yeah, yeah. So I sent it to agents the year of the pandemic, 2020. I sent it to 5 of my kind of top agents, got rejected, and then you have to look at it and think, okay, why are they rejecting it? And so I've gone back to it, working with an editor, actually been really good giving me feedback. So I printed it out, not very environmentally friendly, I know, but just printing it out gets me in that mindset of, okay, I need to look at it. So this year, one more draft. And then, I mean, ideally in a traditional published form, but if not, then self-published. So yeah, either way. So I got rejected on my birthday in 2020. That wasn't fun. But yeah, so I'm going to send it out to agents, keep sending it out, and then hopefully I'll have also kind of a 3 or 4 screenplays that'll be ready to go as well. So it'll be the memoir and the screenplays and the films that I've already made. So fingers crossed, something will happen this year. Definitely, if not traditionally published, then definitely self-published.
Gary, can I just ask about your writing routine? What software do you use for the screenwriting?
Screenplays, I use Final Draft.
Oh yeah, it's hard to pick up. I found Fading I use, which I think it's pretty simple. But
yeah, I've used that as well. It's interesting. Some people find them like really restrictive.
Yeah, I couldn't get my head around it.
I think Fading has the UK play format, which Final Draft doesn't. Final Draft has the American play format, and they're quite different. So I don't know if anyone really looks at that and says, no, it's in the wrong format and doesn't read it. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I use Final Draft, and then for like my plays, I actually just use Word and kind of lay it out myself.
That's horrendous too. When I started writing that, you're putting the spaces, character, description, scene. That's hard work. That doing it in Word.
It's fine. I just put it as like character, name, and then dialogue next to it, so it doesn't feel like it's too much.
Okay.
So I also kind of like writing on my phone, which is a bit horrendous when you're writing a full-length thing on your phone. Yeah.
No way.
I don't do that very often, but it kind of syncs to everything. So then you kind of, you've saved it and it's all there. So.
True. I usually mail it to myself if I'm writing anything. My inbox is just full. Rubbish, really.
Yeah. I'll mail it so I can pick it up on my iPad. Definitely with Final Draft, I now have like iCloud, so I'll save it there. But I have to double check that it's there. Yeah. So, yeah.
Here you go. 2 observations. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything, which is what you mentioned. And how does Ed Sheeran cope without a phone?
That's insane. I don't know. What does he do? He just stares at his thumbs. I don't know. It's so weird. Like, maybe he's writing songs all the time. Maybe. I don't know. I'm enjoying Terry's book, I must say, the audiobook.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, cheers for that, Gary.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Irish accent? Do you think does it help? Do you think, or
was it Irish? I'm like the worst at accents, and so yeah, it's good. I'm listening to it. I don't need subtitles. That's a good thing.
Oh, good. No, appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, it's good. I want to know what happens at the end. Obviously, yeah.
No spoilers from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I read it a while ago, but I read it rather than listen to it. Yeah.
Was it self-published or traditionally published?
Self. Long story with it, but I went through exactly with yourself, rejection after rejection.
Yeah.
I thought, let's just get it out there. If it's rubbish, nobody will buy it. Yeah. And luckily, I've made 1 or 2 sales, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was really good. Yeah.
Well, thanks.
I think you put it out into the world, and hopefully someone will pick it up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
In some ways, it's like sorry, Steve. Go on.
I was just going to say, I suppose it's like your memoirs. You've got to look at it and think, will anybody else find this interesting? Because it's about you, and you've got to think, who else is going to be interested in me? And the more you write and the more well-known you get, obviously, or hopefully, people will want to know a bit more about you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the one thing that I've learned. Actually, writing like Hollywood screenplays, everyone is like, you make something really, really specific, and then people will relate to it. But there's lots of those specific people they can relate to it than if it's like really general. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking at the moment, about how I am kind of in every screenplay. Like the wedding comedy is easy because that's about like me and my brother. Basically, it's about a brother and sister who have to get married on the same day because of an aunt's inheritance. And so yeah, and it took literally 2 drafts to think, oh, this is about me and my brother. Right, okay, I know why I'm writing it now. That's fine. And then kind of the rest of it. I kind of, okay, where am I in this story, and how do I make it, mine? So then fingers crossed, there'll be either a book or a film out by the end of the year. We'll see.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's been great talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
much.
you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been great to meet you.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll visit Liverpool soon.
Yeah, why not?
Give us a shout when you get here, Gary.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks. Really appreciate you joining for the chat.
Yeah,
great company.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much.